Welcome, everyone. I'll go ahead. It's 5:30 on Monday, June 8th. And the first item on our agenda tonight is a public hearing. Welcome, everyone. It's 5:30 on Monday, June 8th. The first item on our agenda tonight is so Denise, I think what's happening is that you have the live YouTube feed in the background in there. So maybe if you just click over, we'll take time, just click over to mute that.
Oh,
Yep.
Here we go.
There we are. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry.
Underway.
We'll begin again. We have our public hearing. Regarding public notice of the Decorah School District and solar energy lease and easement. So I will call that first public hearing to order. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment tonight about solar energy? I'm not seeing anyone catching my eye. Have any comments been submitted? Either written,
No.
Verbal, no contact with the central. Okay, so hearing no comments, I will close the first public hearing and call it adjourned. Next, we have a second public hearing that I'll call to order. Are there any comments, oral, written, concerning the amendment to the 2026-2027 school calendar? This is our third update here. Anyone in the audience want to make a comment? Okay, have any comments been submitted?
No.
Otherwise.
Nope.
Hearing none, I'll call our second public hearing adjourned. Moving on, we'll move on to our regular school board meeting, which I'll call to order. Taking roll call, please note that all directors are here in person. Welcome all, thanks for being here. Do I have a volunteer to read the mission and vision statements?
I can.
Okay, thanks, Brandon.
At Decorah Community School District, we embrace student learning and well-being as our fundamental purpose. We will, in partnership with our students, families, and community, make the world a better place. The mission of the Decorah Community School District is learning, thriving, creating our legacy. The vision of the Decorah Community School District is Decorah Community School District will be a collaborative, innovative, learning-centered organization empowering students to embrace their personal strengths and create their future.
Thank you. And we have nothing under old business. And next is approval of the agenda. And before we have a formal motion, I do want to mention that we have an item that is time sensitive that is listed under our Puckle Save project list that I'd like the board to consider adding as an action item for consideration of approval.
And specifically, it's for 12 passenger van with trade-in that would cost $29,402. It was originally on the list as 43 without a trade run. Those are time sensitive, so apologize for that, but I would recommend we just add that. I guess after V, if the board's comfortable with having a discussion about that.
I make a motion to add discussion of the public safety project within
UVW.
I'll second.
And does your motion also include approving the rest of the agenda? It does now?
Or no, it does not. I will do that after.
Okay,
What's that?
okay, so we have a motion and a second to add an item to the agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And next,
Now we'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
And I would say we could take item C off because that's not ready to be presented at this time. I need to have a little bit more back and forth with.
and we could
Table it.
table it.
Yeah, I don't suppose it matters if we just table it.
I'll second the motion to approve the agenda.
So We have a motion and a second to approve the amended agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you all. Next, we'll move to approval of consent items. In the minutes from our last board meeting, bills, food service, activity fund bills, and personnel.
We should probably get the minutes from the special meeting added in at some point. That's enough for me to know.
You're right, because I was absent during that meeting, but we did have a special meeting. So hopefully we can all to approve those minutes. Just to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve consent items.
Hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is open forum communication from the public. Is there anyone here tonight that would like to make a general statement to the board? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to item 8, our financial report.
And it's gonna be a report. Joan is not able to join us tonight, so. We're just about, the balances we'll put in for June, won't be the official June balances till after the car is done, but a pretty good, understanding of where we'll be at. So, again, we're gonna talk about management fund later, but we do have a fund balance running in management fund, which was by design. And you'll wanna watch that one. So, looking at, Christie, do you have anything that we should add with the financial report tonight?
One comment of our report, you can see that there's a lot of links for June. Does the board have any other questions on the financial reports? Anything that we want to discuss together? Okay. We'll move on to new business. The first item of business is that the school board will enter into a closed session pursuant of Iowa Code section 21.51I to evaluate the professional competency of an individual's whose appointment, hiring, performance, or discharge is being considered when necessary to prevent needless and irreparable injury to that individual's reputation, and the individual requests a closed session. We need a roll call vote to go into closed session. Okay, so we'll go ahead with that.
Lily Jensen,
Yes.
Carol Sand,
Yes.
Cindy Goodner,
Aye.
Aaron Zander.
Aye.
And Brad Darling.
Aye.
So, then we can move up. I probably will pause, so I'll move up, but.
Let me,
We're back at a closed session. We are now on new business item B. The board will consider and take possible action regarding the termination of an employee following the closed session discussion. May I ask the board, the anonymous with names?
Yeah, I'm reviewing with council, we should be specific to state what our action is.
With the name?
Yeah, so I would say the recommendation is to terminate the contract with Kim Newmark Milanoff. So someone could just say that they make that whole thing as proposed.
I'll make the motion as proposed to terminate the employment of Kim Weemark Moranafi.
Second.
We'll bring a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
With the roll call.
Roll call. We'll take a roll call.
Okay. Lily Jensen. Carol Sand. Cindy Goodner,
Aye.
Aaron Zander, and Brad Darling.
Aye.
Moving on, to new business item C. Consider approval of solar energy lease and easement agreement. And as Tim mentioned briefly earlier, we're still.
We're between the Allers version and the Prairie Nova version, so there's a little work left to be done. I don't want to approve these because they're just Allers, so I want to, John and I have a meeting on Thursday, we're going to try to close the gap, and I'll be asking for a special meeting for the board, but we'll get that scheduled for a little bit. So I would just table item C.
Make a motion to table item C.
There's a motion and a second to table item C. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item D. Consider approval of the revised 26-27 calendar. Tim, can you talk us through this?
Yeah, this is a real quick one, with bargaining and reducing the teacher contract day by 1 day. We have had been met, and we turned February 26th, which was a Friday PD day, into a student contact day. That shortened up the calendar, and now the new last day of school, instead of May 18th, is May 17th, which is the Monday. Of course, it's super odd to end school on a Monday, but we kind of anticipate a snow day or two. So then that gives us 4 snow days, and we're still out that Friday. We're hoping for a mild winter, because I keep saying it, but we will have a lot to do with the construction of the new building in May of 27, and also hopefully we'll get it done so we're ready to go August 23rd of 2027. But that's not what this
We
is.
need a uniquely long summer.
Yeah.
That
That's the way to say it.
the to move out of the old building, have the old building secure and taken care of, and then also moving into the new building in the fall. That's an issue.
Make a motion that we approve the revised 26-27 school calendar as presented.
Second. Moving the motion and a second, any other further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item E, consider approval of the 26-27 service agreement between the Decorah Community School District and the Keystone Area Education Agency for educational, technology, media, and support services for July 1st, 26 through June 30th, 27.
And we've started doing this the last couple of years with the changes with how the state does the AA. We had needed to do it the last couple of years because there's some firewall support that we get from the AA, but now it's also beneficial because we have the secondary relationship with the tech department. So I asked Sean to review it, and it looked good to him, so I would recommend that we approve this agreement again this year.
Any substantive changes from last year to this year?
I'll make a motion to approve the service agreement between the household, respectfully, to some education.
I'll second.
I'm hearing a motion in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Post same sign. Motion carries. Next is item F, consider approval of the 26-27 shared agreement between the Decorah Community School District and Keystone Area Education Agency for a shared work-based learning coordinator services. This would be new.
This would be new, and this is, so kind of talked through this with our pre-meeting. This is, in the past, we've purchased days from the AAA of, Deb Burns, and she's helped supported our CTE and, done the workplace, some of the workplace learning stuff. It was offered to us that if she was called a workplace learning coordinator, that's a potential operational sharing item, which then generates revenue, 2 students times $8,148. So it generates, it's going to generate over about $16,000. When I first heard it, I somehow got the wrong number that, it wasn't going to cost us even $11,000, which wouldn't have made any sense, because if we're buying 20% of her contract with insurance and benefits, it does have to be more than that. So there is a little bit of extra spending on our part. But then that got narrowed when I recall that we're already paying about $7,000 a year for the services. So you have to add the 7,000 plus the 16 and subtract that number from the 39. And somehow when I did that, or 29, when I did that, it got closer to about $5,000 for 30 extra days. There were questions about specifics on what Bev would be doing and how it differs from what Patty Putnam offers in district. And so we prepared a document. I had Brad do that, as he would know that better than I, and Brad's here, and he has the ability to help me answer questions about that as well. So I don't know, Brad, if there's an executive summary you can give us on how this, because I know you look at it as there's opportunities that she's going to get us grants and might generate us revenue.
Yeah, so as I stated, we've had Bev Burns coming in once a month to provide CTE support, which a few years ago was mostly just working on RPP funding and what equipment we want to buy. And in just the 4 years I've been here, it's gone from, let's do a little bit with that to let's have CTE career concentrators, let's have a CTE advisory committee, let's have CTSOs, let's have work-based learning that's registered apprenticeship, let's have CTE or industry recognized credentials. Now you've got to have a complete recognition system.
And those are requirements coming from the
Yeah,
state.
in 4 years, the number of requirements has exponentially increased. In conjunction with that, so Maddie will still remain in her role. She works for NSCC and the Michigan County Foundation, and on a typical day that Bev is here, Maddie would also be here. And the two of them together are amazing. They're very knowledgeable about what's going on, opportunities for grants, community-based learning, press releases that we put out for all the stuff that we do, helping to write the DCAP that we submitted last month for approval. So in no ways, they're basically complementary roles, but the nice thing about this particular opportunity is that Bev would become our employee to work more directly within school, and also maybe help with setting some of these things up more. Right now, Bev provides support for lots of things, but it's once a month, and she's not really in a defined workplace learning coordinator role. She does help support Pat, our bachelor and our counselor, to kind of get stuff going, but we've been scratching the surface on some of that compared to what many other districts have in place. And part of that's just a matter of capacity. That's really difficult for Pat, let's say, to leave the building during the school day, or try to find opportunities for kids to have or imagine what an apprenticeship or an internship be for a student. Where Beth lives local, she is by all accounts a statewide expert in the CTE. Like if you tomorrow I'm going to a DCAP scoring session. It's gonna be her and the DE chairing it. She's like, the fact that we're getting of all people Bev Burns for this point two is a pretty good deal for us. Probably the best person you can hire in the state for workplace learning and knowledge about what's happening with the DE level. So when this opportunity came up, I didn't hesitate to reach out to them and said, this would be amazing. With this, and with the sharing that it's presented, it's like, I look at it as an investment. With just a little bit of time that we've had Bev and Maddie working together, we've had a $28,000 grant for computer smart business classroom, as well as and $7,000 grant for welding equipment for Brian Watts House. The money's harder to come by, so the knowledge that they both bring to the table with grants that are available and opportunities to apply for them. I don't want to overpromise on it or but I think that there'll be more grants and opportunities that we get through this role as well.
And I know you and I talked a lot about workplace learning in the last 4 years and how that's an area that, as awesome as the district is and the high school is, that's one area that we maybe don't compare as well to other districts. And so there's a potential of when somebody sits down to rank schools, if we don't have a robust workplace learning option, then we don't represent the awesomeness that we are.
Yeah, we don't want to chase it too much, because we still want to maintain the integrity of academic quality that we have post-secondary, earning up credits, taking AP courses. We don't, in some schools, many of their students as seniors just leave the building and work. We don't want to become an asset, but we are also going to be held accountable more and more for the number of students that are doing work-based learning. And more specific to the type of work-based learning that, right now, many of our students work and have jobs in areas that they may aspire to have a career in someday. But we're not at the level of like really where the state's going, which is a registered apprenticeship, which is a lot harder to learn, as well as students earning what are called industry recognized credentials through these opportunities. We do have kids doing this, but if it were to report out those two criteria, I think we would be below average relative to what some of the other schools in the state are doing as well. And so since it's now part and growing part of our accountability formulas, if we don't dedicate resources and time to this, our rankings could suffer because of how they're determining the system they're using to rank schools right now, especially high schools.
And as Tim described before, this is an investment that it's not like having it's a portion with the sharing incentives as well as other factors. It's what I consider to be a small investment with a potentially a huge return on investment. Both with, as Brad just described, school rankings, additional financial capacity for supplies, capacity, and whatnot. Plus, it will not only by investing in this position or the shared position, we're also adding capacity to existing employees like our high school counselors. That will give them an opportunity cost. It'll give them more time to focus on their, their other counseling work and scholarship work and motivated students.
That actually is one of my questions, when we talk about offloading and assessment things. You envision most the best time being in high school, or knowing that middle school is going to have to start within there, she's going to help prep some of that.
Yeah, I can talk a ton about that. There is for sure in the BCAP, as we talked about last month, more need for work-based career exposure at grades 5 through 8. We also purchased a schooling's platform for the career information system. State coordinated for that. So there is opportunity there for some stuff we just haven't coordinated with that. Yet. We want to kind of wait on some of that and then discussion decisions. Certainly opportunities exist. But take full advantage. I mean, right now we're getting her half a day once a month, and this would be a full day every week. So there's a significant change there.
The document that you, I assume that you wrote up that provided that described the job that Bev would be doing and that Maddie does. I think that's a really important document for those two to know what the responsibilities are. this really is all about providing opportunities for students. I'm a little reluctant to add more, just to spend more money on a new position in the district, but I do think that this is really an important position, it's important work. You think the state should be, they keep adding and adding and adding more on our plate for CTE, and it's all really good work, but it's an unfunded mandate, and I think that, it's important for us to acknowledge that and for the appointment to be aware of it too. But the money should be coming, from the state for this, but, thankfully, we do have, can have sharing agreement with Keystone that will help with half of the funding in the end. So I do support this, and I like your idea that, that she could be helped with giving them.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say is, the division of duties I think is important. And, our planning values and helping students where they want to go and building relationships, but I wouldn't discount relationships that Maddie has with our local. Business.
And I don't, when I was asked to play them, and I'm like, I feel like they're complementary and they do some similar work, and that's not a bad thing, to be collaborative on those areas. But since I was gonna ask, like, what differently could they do, I'll try to imagine that, but I think they'll be collaborative to things.
Thank you for all the work you've done. Questions? Seriously.
When we said at the beginning, we are already paying somebody to have her services.
Yeah, like, so that was a piece I kind of slipped my mind when I first was doing the math. I was doing the math on what's gonna be the cost of sharing, less what the state would give us. And then, I don't know, just dawned on me, if we don't do this, we're still gonna need to buy 8 days of Bev's time, which was, I think the number was 7,000, but by the time you add in what the incentive from the state is and what we were already used to spending, then the gap was only $5,000 roughly more, and that was in that document. I don't have that memorized, but to point out that basically you're getting 30 more days for $5, and with the idea that more quality services and potentially some grants in there. And I very much appreciate the board watching every penny, and I say that sincerely because I'd much rather get questions about, are we sure we can afford this, than just kind of a rubber stamp on everything, because it is tight financial time. So, yeah, and I think kind of Carol summed it up nicely for a nominal amount of money. It's an opportunity to get some good services for our students.
I'll make a motion that we approve the shared service agreement with Keystone AEA for the work-based learning coordinator.
Thank you for your motion in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we'll move on to item G, approval of the DHS in Decorah High School and Cary Lee roof improvements project.
And this is a formality. We've already accepted the lowest bid, so we just have to sign the agreement with For Sure Roofing. As a reminder, because it makes me happy, the bids came in about $200,000, I think, less than what we thought we were gonna have to spend. So for $443,565, we're getting sections 17, 31, 32, and 33 at the high school done, and CD and I at Cary Lee. So we have to go with the lowest bidder, but we have to have once we award the contract with that vendor. So
Anytime I sign anything, it needs.
or approval. Yeah.
Make motion to approve this project contract.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion on the second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, item H, we will consider approval to set a public hearing on a proposed resolution to transfer funds into the district's flexibility account for any general fund purpose. Pursuant to chapters 21 and 298 of Iowa Code.
So, this is something that school districts have the ability to do. We have restricted accounts, funds that can be only used on certain things. If we've met all the obligations of those programs, we're allowed, I suppose every year, every time we want to do it, to put those monies together, and run them through a flexibility account. And then the flexibility account has different rules that you could spend the money on. So you're taking it out of like the professional development account, and you're saying, okay, we met our professional development, we can put it in this flexibility account, and then we can use it. And they've got a list of a bunch of things, but the last thing they say is any general fund purpose. So that's the mechanism by which you would say, we'll take the PD funds, we won't use them all, we'll help them to offset and pay teacher salary, and then it becomes a budget cut. So this was something that Kathy and I had talked about doing in the summer of 2026, with the idea being that this money's kind of sitting there, we can't touch it, we don't have a need for it. Let's move it to the flexibility account. If we go ahead, and so then we would have a meeting on June 22nd, public hearing at noon, where as long as we're allowed, notifying our intention to do this, to move the flexibility account, then we could also have an agenda item to spend the money out of the flexibility account. The strategy there is to do it before June 30th, 2026. It then will be on our general fund. We'll go into our car. Potentially, is then gets reviewed for bond rating in the future, and we get a one-time bump in our general fund this way. We
Right,
know
this is not gonna
it's not going to happen every year.
happen here because of a string of
Yeah,
circumstances.
Yeah, potentially we could do it annually with the PD funds, but we don't anticipate these other accounts having surpluses. Central City, for example, would always run a real high balance on their preschool account, and that's another one. We don't have a fund balance on that account, so we're not transferring out. We've got a high estimate. The estimate, talking with Janet and Joan, was let's overestimate, because we'll scrape together what we can, but we don't want to say 100,000 and then, oh gosh, we could have done 200,000 or something like that. So this is probably to say that we have $700,000 or $699,000 unobligated and unexpended in those accounts. It's probably high. We'll know in the next week or so, but by stating a number that's higher, we can always do less. This is, I think I used it for a couple board members. This is equivalent to like your home budget, and then you get that birthday check from grandma. That helps your home budget for a month. And so strategically placing that benefit so that it hits in the fiscal year 26. I can't say that it's going to make our bond rating any greater, but I know it won't hurt our bond
This is
rating.
the time when we need to check everything, just
Oh,
do
yeah.
absolutely everything we can to get the best possible rate for the job that we're going to for the school project. So I really think this is a recommendation based on what we have on the horizon for debt management.
These carryover funds that were, how long have these been building? Should they
Yeah,
build on
I've got a
the
graph.
summer, Or is it?
It's like a 5-6 year.
Okay, yeah.
And they, we didn't do a huge forensic dive, but like the teacher leadership compensation, if you don't code something right, it doesn't pull out of that account. So then that fund built up, when it should have come out of so then we took it out of general fund anyway. So we're literally paying general fund back because we didn't have something coded one year. And you can kind of see when you have a year where it bounces up, you're like, oh, that's probably the year that we had the fund balance. So I do have that document. I'm happy to share it with the board when I'm not in a board meeting when I have time. That's fine. So.
I mean, I think the state giving us flexibility, it would be great if the state gave us flexibility to use all funds the way that we
Yeah.
would like to, and so I think this is essentially giving us
Yeah, this is,
legal avenue to do
yeah.
that.
this is maybe, within the last 5 or 6 years, the state's allowed people to do this. And, yeah, there'd be people who would say, we want flexibility with management fund or one of the others, and, this is, it's nice to have flexibility on some accounts, and so we'll take what we can get. We're not running a deep fund balance on management fund, so it doesn't matter for us, but there are other districts that would be being capable of.
Again, this is, we're considering setting a public hearing.
Yeah,
So that's
exactly.
the action we're considering.
And would it work to have the public hearing on June 22nd at 12 p.m. is my next question. Or would there be another time that?
Let's take a moment to think about that before we.
But put it at noon. It's
On Monday.
2 Mondays from today. That date, the real rush is just to get it before June 30th.
The 22nd, that meeting is good for me.
Nope, same. Right.
I'll make a motion that we set a public hearing for June 22nd at 12 p.m. for the flexible account.
A second.
Hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we're on item number I. For us to consider an adjustment of our management fund in order to set a final tax rate for 26-27. And our tax rate is something that we also are paying very close attention to because we made a promise to donors, sorry, so. I'm a development director, fundraising is my career, of our voting public. We want to keep our promises to them. What we said with, this is for the school project, so. Our management fund is one financial lever that we can pull and be strategic with, and I'll turn it over to you to share our strategy of why we built it up and
Yeah.
why we're asking to reduce it.
So we intentionally knew that we'd have a project coming by this year. And so we had been putting a little extra into management fund. So we do have enough in the management fund. If you go back to those financial reports, close to 1.5 million. That would get us through all next year without, putting anything in. We anticipate, although those costs are going up astronomical, because that's where we get building insurance and storm insurance and things like that. That being said, when we set our tax rate, it was before the legislature was done, if you recall, and we intentionally set it high, knowing that there would be parts of the legislature that might reduce it. And so, in fact, I think our first tax rate was about 1358. And then the big thing that came out of the legislature was they picked up the cost of your budget guarantee. So that's the amount of money that if your enrollment drops, you're guaranteed 101%, but you tax for it locally. And what the state said is, oh, we'll pick up everybody's budget guarantee this year. They do that in conjunction with setting it the SSA. So when they said 2%, they said, we'll pick up your budget guarantee. So then we didn't have to pay that. So then our tax rate did go down. It dropped down to, it currently sits at 1337 and a little bit more. And we knew that the lever that we were going to reduce was the management fund. So we had put $300,000 in the management fund. There's two different ways we could look at it. If we reduce that 300,000 by 66%, that would reduce the levy would go down to about $102,000, and our overall tax rate would be 1318, which is like within half a penny of where it's been the last couple of years. I did also suggest another way for the management fund is if we took the 300,000 and reduced it to 150,000, which would reduce our tax rate to $13.23, which would be within a minute. So the board can kind of understand how that works. there will be needs for management funds next year. And so the lever we would pull would be the cash reserve, but there's just pressures on our budget right now. One idea with putting a little bit more into management fund this year is then you don't have to pull quite as hard next year.
So by going to 50%.
Yeah,
this year, we
yeah,
would-
if the board would feel comfortable with that nickel, of the tax. So, I guess if you have questions, that bird's in it, that would.
I know, I was like, that,
Well-
I feel bad for that bird, sorry.
I know, I don't want to, local tax rates are something that we're all paying very close attention to. But I do want to share with the board that when we started our school project, they were surprised at our current tax rate for the school district. Relatively speaking, across the state of Iowa, they thought our school tax was very low. And that's just food for thought as we think about how we manage this. And I know that we have other tax levers in other, city and county that are calculated differently. And I think the most important thing we can do is to provide as much stability as possible. Keep our promises to others.
I agree. I think several of the things the state is doing right now in terms of how we're changing property taxes and how we're changing the format of how taxation occurs, which then has a trickle effect to literally everything from the city budget to the county budget to school budget. At some point, it's gonna be really hard for us to keep the promise we set, not because of our own doing, but because the state has changed the game. And they've said, you can tax as much as you want, but it's gonna be on you to do it. I'm not sure how long we can stay to our original guarantee that we're gonna set some number and just be there regardless if the state changes the ballgame. Now, how long it stays that way isn't up to us, but I think there's forces at play that are changing what we had originally talked about.
Well, I view our promise on our tax was the new building. We're not talking about changing the tax rate because we added $10 million to this project. We're talking about other things. So, I mean, we're kind of looking at two different avenues and looking at our two options. I'm more in favor of cutting it by 50% and then maybe see what next year brings. I'd hate to cut it too much this year and then we're just way too tight and then we have to yo-yo back up. That's my thought on the two options.
I agree, and I think the 50% reduction is still 50% reduction on, people.
So,
Need action.
yeah, I always had to go back and.
Agree.
I'll propose that we reduce our management fund levy by 50% for next year.
We have to reduce the actual management fund.
Yeah, so you could do one of two things. You
I
could-
said the levy up the management fund. I just flip-flopped the words.
Um. So. Overall. You're expecting to see the district's grand total levy rate at 13,23,067.
Yes.
Does that need to be?
I would say let's add that to the motion because there's a document that Chrissy's gonna fill out probably during this meeting. I think she's gonna put in, I think it's best that we do that because there's always our calculations versus what John Parker's calculator does. So
I'll amend my proposed motion to the following. I propose that we change our management fund levy, reducing it by 50%, creating a grand total levy rate for the district of 13,23,067.
Second.
Favoring the motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item J, authorization of payment of year-end claims.
This is a pretty basic one. This just says, after this meeting is over and through June 30th, we can pay all claims. That just makes it easier on the bookkeeping end. Usually we do pay bills through a board meeting. And I, rather than have a special board meeting, we'll just pay the claims. That will help us with the bar. We won't have to do as many, journal entries.
Will that be recorded in the next meeting?
Yeah, they'll still be on a payable list, but. At least look a little bit more.
I'll make a motion to authorize to pay all year-end claims ending June 30th, 2026.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item K, so the 25-26 bank depository limits. And we're visiting this because of our school project.
And it's an annual approval. We have a whole bunch of banks listed. We kind of segmented up, we divided them this year. Because we really use Decorah and Viking Bank the most. The other ones, it's nice to have. This just sets the amount of money we're allowed to have in one specific bank at a time, and which banks we're allowed to have money in. I know we had to have a hurry up amendment this one year because we actually had too much money in the bank, and that auditors will see that and say, oh, you could only have $8 million in Viking State Bank, and you have $8,100,000. So you do have to keep it under the limits. 40 million seems like a dramatically high amount. And I'll tell you, in talking through with Joan, we know that we're gonna borrow another 18 million for the school project. And we know that we already have accounts in Decorah Bank and Viking State Bank. We hope that one of our local vendors gets that. We just didn't want to, if we only said Viking State Bank gets to go to 40 million, and Decorah doesn't get to go to 40 million, then we've already pre-chosen who we're gonna go with. So this just remains flexible. If for some reason we go to sell those bonds at a different bank between those three would get the 18 million, we would probably have to come back to the board and just say, hey, we need approval to put $18 million in Farmers Trust and Savings. But other than that, this is a very basic annual item. The limits are just higher right now because we have a bond project going on, and we want to be able to have places to put that money.
I appreciate us working with our local banks.
So will the motion have to be include each bank and their, or just as it's?
I would just make a motion as presented.
I'll make a motion to approve our bank limits as presented.
I'll second.
Hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Please note that.
Next is item L, approval of our 26-27 district legal counsel.
This is another annual item, and we always use Allers and Cooney as our legal counsel. There are certain matters that Allers and Cooney may not be able to help us with, and so I just added in Ellen Ostergen as a additional legal counsel if that would come up.
I'll make a motion that we approve the 26-27 district legal counsel as presented.
So,
The second goes to Lily. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is approval, we're on item M, approval of the 26-27 newspaper publication media.
Another annual item, and we use the Decorah Leader as our newspaper for our publications. And so that's where, by approving this kind of says where we're going to post our board minutes and our public hearing notices.
I'll move that we continue using the Decorah Leader for our publication purposes.
Second.
Bring a motion on the second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item M is approval of the 26-27 staff handbooks. There's two, one for classified and one for certified.
And this is usually a June or July type agenda item. We always do this, teacher one following, the approval of the agreement, because then that's part of the master contract. It's nice to have that out when we're out hiring staff. For the classified handbook, specifically this year, we added in language about, how we're looking to change the method of payment for the 27-28 school year. So that's noted on page 5. There is a group yet to be formed, that like an advisory group that I'll meet with, like I do with the teachers union. That's not listed in here, but it's also not listed in the teachers union group. So that's just something we're gonna do. It doesn't necessarily need to be required to be in a handbook.
And also it says intends to pay all hourly employees, so, you know, action would still need to be taken by the board. And then we will make those changes. This is just formalized stuff. Yeah, this is just verbalizing kind of the process that, and Tim, thank you for taking the time to meet with staff and to listen and to hear concerns and to work with that together. So this is just documenting what has been discussed and what the intention is, but I just want to clarify that formal changes to that policy will require board action.
So for this next school year, classified staff will be paid for 12
The way they are paid.
They are right now.
We have, I think, 2 staff that are willing to volunteer to transition, which would be good, because they're
Try out to do that.
proud to do that. So, minimal changes to the teacher handbook, just kind of putting in the things that we negotiated. I think they got highlighted in yellow, so there weren't too many. There's I think more in the master contract than the handbook. I think it's just the rate of pay. Yeah. So. But as we reissued the para contracts, we wanted to be able to, paras indicated they'd be willing to stop by and pick them up, so we didn't have to mail them all out. And that's the way we can have, yeah, and we can still mail them out, of course, but just if we start off and have them ready tomorrow, then we'll have a classified handbook ready for them to review.
What other questions does the board have about these handbooks?
Questions at the time?
Mhm.
Well, thank you, board members, for taking the time to review them this month, just to keep our admin team moving.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve our 2026-2027 staff handbooks.
Second. Okay, hearing a motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries. Next, we're on item O, approval of the 26-27 master contract.
So we just added in the items from negotiations, the big ones that are not highlighted. Unfortunately, we accepted the changes, so that can't look for those. But I can tell you that the big changes and that Aaron and Brad can help me out, but service leave we reduced from the option of 2 years of service leave down to 1. We cleaned up what was wellness leave. You get an extra, we shouldn't call it wellness day. If you have, we started this last year, but there was some question, if you're getting 15 sick days and you end the school year with 152 and we add 15 to that, then you only get 165 because you've maxed out. 165 is the most sick leave you can have. And so we added in a leave day for that just said, if you finish a year and when we add your 15 to it, you're at 165 or more, you'll get your leave day. That was just confusing for people. So you just codified that in here. Those are the big ones I can think of. Oh, we did add language about getting permission for leave within the last 3 weeks of school. Just that's a hard substitute time and everyone understood that. So I appreciate that. Just, that's an example when there's something that's brought up that isn't beneficial to one side or the other, it's beneficial to both sides. We know from the district's perspective that it's just tough to have people who take their personal leave the last week of school, and it makes it tough not just for the principals, but it makes it hard for all the teachers. This does reflect 190-day teacher work calendar with 6 holidays, 184 work days. And then it just, if you get into the wages and salaries, it just kind of sets what the minimums are. We had a couple of those, I'd say, specific adjustments at different steps. So.
Carol, you were knowingly nodding both as a teacher and as a substitute employee.
Those last 2 weeks, that last month really of school was really difficult to find subs.
Yeah.
So we had a plea for more subs, we need more subs.
Absolutely. Yeah, that works.
Brad and Aaron, do you have any other questions serving on negotiations?
No, I,
Pretty much have summed it up.
yeah, you reflected all the things we talked about very well, so I don't have anything to add to it. I'll move that we approve the 26-27 master contract.
I'll second.
Okay, hearing a motion in a second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next, we're on item P. Approval of tuition reimbursement.
So this agreement we've used for teachers we've hired in the past. Probably most of them have been either special ed or like the CTE teachers that need to submit classes. We did hire an assistant SBO and just tonight. So, and one of the recruiting parts is for her, I think she's got to we take one class, but a nominal thing, but we did promise we offer her tuition reimbursement. So this is just a document that says we agree to pay for SAGE's classes, and then she reimburses if she leaves at a percentage within the first 5 years. And we're not anticipating that, but it's always good to have that language in there.
That's great. I hope that Sage is with us for 5 years and beyond.
And beyond.
And congratulations to Sage.
Was wonderful to have this, such a great person. Found and hired for this position.
Yeah, we're pretty excited, and we're excited about all our hires, but it's a position she's probably been interviewing for since she started kindergarten.
What fund does this come out of? I assume this comes out of a separate
This
fund
would-
when we reimburse teachers.
Yeah, teachers, we take it out of TQ, this will have to take out of general. Yeah, that's a really good question.
But again, I see this as a small investment with huge return on investment.
And it's just one course.
I think we think he's got to work with you and I, and then but when we did a quick review, it's supposed to be 9 hours in accounting, and I think she only has 6.
I'll make a motion to approve the agreement regarding licensure support and supplemental compensation.
I'll second.
It went on like the read the rest for the assistant school business official.
He's still second.
I still second.
He does. Okay. Motion and second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is item Q, which is a proposal from Terracon to conduct a ground penetrating radar assessment. Our high school auditorium is sinking a little bit, and we need to maintain it and make sure it's just right.
Yeah, so the history is maybe about 10 years ago, we did not gonna use the right term. We raised it up by mudjacking. Mudjacking is what we might call it, maybe they had a different term for it, but we did a mudjacking. And, it has settled, so rather than just mudjack again and walk away, we decided maybe we should explore, make sure that we don't, make sure we understand what the issue is. And working with the folks from Decorah, they do feel like it's probably just gonna be solved with mudjacking again. They were pretty positive about, well, if it lasted 8 to 10 years, you're probably okay. So this is really a preventative. They want to come in and do this, I would say X-ray, but they want to do the ground penetrating radar just to make sure there's nothing substantial there that we're ignoring. And the only way to do that is come in and do this. So this is kind of insurance that there's not a bigger problem.
The only piece I'd add to just
Yeah.
not to create, like structurally, the auditorium is in perfectly fine shape. This area is in an entryway and restrooms. It has nothing to do with the actual proscenium, the stage, and all the structural support for the actual area. It's just some settlement in the flooring areas of a few different places that it was a little more than 10 years ago, prior to the renovation. So it's just since then, once the backing came in, did the work, it worked out really well. So, about 9 months, it's been in the same spots, so the same.
It's a really unique area, right?
But all of our walls, everything else is in great shape,
Right?
no concern
Thanks for clarifying.
with that. Everyone would be probably well past the distance.
So it's not the auditorium at all. It's just some little tiny pieces in other areas.
Some different interior walls that are kind of.
Well, we want to protect our investment. Hopefully we will. Make sure that it's-
And as an aside, this is being taken into consideration that by engineers with this construction of our new school,
Right?
which is why we have 800, what do we call them?
Oh, here's
Ramp
Geo-
aggregate.
Geopiers.
Here's, it's, the school's gonna flow to top of.
Yeah.
You felt every one of them.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with Decorah for the work at the high school auditorium.
Any motion in a second, any further discussion or question? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is an exempt session. For our bargaining strategy and negotiations. And roll call.
We don't need to do roll call to go into exempt session. It's different than closed session.
It is, but
We could do it.
I would like the motion in a second, just to go into exempt session to have that.
I'll make a motion that we go into exempt session.
We have a motion in a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay.
All right, folks,
Up, down, up, down.
Based on
Welcome back, everyone. Please note that we came out of closed session at 7:15. I did it again. Exempt session. Thank you, Erin, at 7:15. So we are on to item S. Consider approval of the 26-27 compensation agreements for non-union staff and issuance of contracts.
I'll move that we approve the compensation agreements as presented.
I'll second.
Okay, the second goes to Carol. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item T, consider approval of memorandum of understanding with RSVP.
This is just a volunteer program that we have in our elementary schools. And the reason we're seeing it this year, we maybe haven't seen it in the past, is because it is a contract that has a signature on it. And I was always told that those should get board approval and be signed by the board president. So
And I'm glad that the school district is working with the RSVP program. It's an incredible program. I thought there had been changes to it with changes in federal.
There were some mild changes to the contract within the last 2 years, but a little bit with the wording of the services,
Okay,
primarily.
And will you continue to be the go-to person for them?
No.
we're working on it.
We appreciate all the RSVP does for our schools. It's a wealth of volunteers. It's so cute. I was at my son's soccer game and RSVP does the pen pal program for graders. And one of the pen pals came to a soccer game. That's all, like,
they're in.
powerful that relationship is.
Great.
I make a motion that we approve the MOU with RSVP.
I'll second.
Okay, we're in a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We are on item U, consideration of termination of the Decorah Community School District participation in the Crossroads Consortium.
So this is just another step in the process. We've already sent notification to Planned Care that we weren't going to use them to provide services. But we have a consortium, which is with all the school districts, so we need to terminate that. As recommended by the Department of Education, that we do this step as part of our process. So I highly recommend that we do this with language reviewed by Carrie Weber, our attorney. And not only does Decorah need to do this, but all 16 or whatever schools that are involved have this as an agenda item this month or next.
And we'll look forward to reading more in the future about services for the students.
Yeah.
That's, you're welcome.
I'll make a motion to terminate our participation with the Crossroads Consortium Agreement.
Hearing a motion on the second, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, new school updates. We dismissed or had our last day of school relatively early to some of our neighboring or regional districts. And Dr. Browning and Tori Watson took field trips to look at two different things: social stairs, furniture, and also observed school colors while you were in those buildings. And in we've mentioned before that we have a core committee, which includes Dr. Cronin, Carol, and myself, sometimes Lily or others to fill in if someone's busy, but we had talked in the last week's meeting just about some updates.
So Tuesday after Memorial Day, we had a big group that did what was called a furniture field trip and went to Waverly Shell Rock, Waterloo,
Cedar Falls and then Lowell and Waterloo.
Okay,
So Beverly Shaw Rock and Roll were new builds, and then Orchard Hill was a remodel. And lucky for us, unlucky for them, maybe, all of them were still in session, and so we were able to see real use and real time. Yeah, usage of students and teachers and get feedback from the staff in the building too.
And they were primary, elementary age
Yep.
buildings.
WSR was TK through 4, Orchard Hill is preschool through 6, and then Lowell is preschool through 5, I believe, but we just stuck preschool through 2nd at Lowell. But yeah, it was, like, Lowell has 11 preschools, which was crazy to be in that setting and space. So yeah, it was really good just to have teachers see something different too. Some of our teachers come running taught it from time, and so it was nice to get out and see how other people operate, and what that looks like. It's easier to read if you see it in action.
Yeah,
But it's a
sure. Well, thanks for sharing your time.
Yeah.
To take a big group. And we had a different group that went to look at social steps.
a much smaller group went on Wednesday. I'm sorry I missed the Tuesday, but I had stuff that kept me occupied. So Tuesday we drove down specifically down to Solon to see the social stairs at their middle school. And I somehow misplaced in my brain that I knew the middle school principal for probably 45 years. I figured I could trust Mike, and he was happy to have us. And the quick summary is social stairs we would not recommend based on some of the fears we already had. And they weren't maybe quite as awesome as we thought. So that's a quick summary on social stairs. But while we were there, Mike gave us a tour of the building, because was the middle school 7 years old?
Yeah, it was less than 10 for sure.
So the middle school was 7, and then we finished up and he said, "Oh, you really should go to our intermediate building, our 3-5 building." Then he went and made a call and got us accepted over there. The intermediate building, not only did we get to tour and look at furniture and stuff, was one of the buildings that has more colors than I'm used to. I hesitate to say, but the way I explain it is, it's like a Partridge Family bus, you got little bits of paint left over. And so each panel is a different color. The colors were nice to see. They were probably better than we thought, but we would still, we're having a meeting with Patty and Nick, I think this week at Thursday at 2, where we're gonna really lean into, let's stick to earth tones and pick a couple of colors and definitely no reds. Nothing dramatic.
This is for the inside of the building?
Or else.
The inside, we looked at the outside as
And the
well.
outside too. So will you be talking with Patty at that time about the outside of the building too?
Thursday.
Yeah. And so,
We'll also be discussing, like, instead of the social stairs, but the road there too, just because it is the first thing to see when you walk in. But I talked about, like, we still would like it to be someone with a statement piece, just more intended for elementary use.
we saw lots of little nooks in the buildings and little fun spots to sit and read a book, and took lots of pictures, and so appreciative of all the school districts for allowing us to be in, and it's great that they still had students so we could see how everything fit with real life people.
What colors are we proposing now for the outside of the building, not the inside, but
Oh,
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So before we had the press release for the groundbreaking, I had asked that in the visuals for that press release that the yellow be removed. Simply because I've had conversations, I don't know if we've ever talked about it as a board together. But I've heard from more than one person that the yellow didn't fit our brand as a school. Or the natural colors of our downtown and high school and blocks, etc. So, for now, and we can certainly pass that on for, the twice a month group meeting. It's my understanding that the areas that had a painted color were painted because they are metal, not brick.
yes.
And so for the sake of the press release, they had just used the colors blue and red around the whole building. And
But that's still a decision for us to make. what colors those will be, because they might not necessarily be what they were.
Well, yeah, I don't know. And that's something that we can certainly ask Patty to join one of our future meetings to have a conversation about that. I don't suggest that we change materials on the building at all, but I don't know if it's possible to have a more neutral color on metal rather than the primary color. I don't know.
What do you color they want?
I'd be interested to hear what happens with your group and Patty talking about the inside colors, and that might possibly be something for us to consider when we look at the outside, when we discuss the outside.
I know you talked about material. I know there's gonna be some limestone on the outside and
Yeah.
the front,
Yeah.
and some
Yep.
like coming into the building too.
Yep.
Mhm.
And so that would be a more neutral fit into the landscape. Right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of brickwork that is your conventional coloring, so.
Yeah, I did notice someone, they had very bright windows outside. And the red was fading.
Oh, yeah.
quickly, And so we
Oh, it
talked about
was.
fading and things like that, but it wasn't metal, but it's just something to consider if there is a lot of color.
Any bright colors
Well,
gonna
and I think,
fade.
Carol, you brought up that question. You
I
asked
think it has-
specifically about fading.
I did ask that with Emergent and Myron, and they said that they typically don't.
Yeah.
And that
Fade,
wasn't
but
metal.
we're talking about decades of this building. And I'm really concerned about something.
Yeah, I agree. Unless it's different than,
Eventually.
yeah.
Okay, well, those are certainly questions that are there other questions from the board that we could share back through that committee? About the project?
This is you shared their Monday report. Sorry, this is different than those two.
That's okay. I think,
It's a long report with a lot of steps in it. How are we just generally, how are we doing on schedule?
a week and a half ahead right now. It's important to get our state permit issued this month to keep construction on schedule, and Patty at Emergent is working hard on that. And Blake is following up with Patty. And otherwise, so far so good. Some other major obstacles
Are we starting some major deliveries coming up?
of materials.
Of materials coming up soon? Yeah, but, even with the rain, obviously, they do have 18 rain days built into the schedule, so
And as of last week, they had only used one weather day, right?
it might be different. now.
Yeah, today might have been.
But their rain days would have been much more impactful early on when they had all those holes dug. Once you get it leveled off and start working above ground, it's not as detrimental.
Back to the social stairs, there is an allowance in the budget for the social stairs, so there is money to change that to the other ideas that you all decide on. Will you be getting together this summer to continue to work on your ideas with the teachers, or?
I have a pretty good idea
Okay,
of what they were thinking or the things that they liked. I had them fill out a survey afterwards of the things that they saw, the things that they liked, the things that were applicable, the things that are needed for their classroom, and things that are not so much needed, just prioritizing what we should focus on and what we shouldn't. And so, yeah, I have a pretty good idea of where they're at with things.
so you can work with Patty on that when you all meet.
Yeah, I feel pretty confident.
And then with the furniture, what are the next steps with furniture? I'm interested in us trying to get some kind of order in
Yeah. in pilot
earlier rather
furniture.
than later with inflation
I
right now.
think, yeah, I think Patty talked about, she has like a list of people who would be interested in providing furniture to the district, and we would interview those people and then decide.
And they did say that they had many interested companies that contacted, so the project is popular.
Filtering them to Patty.
Good, thank you. Great.
And one of the things that you talked about was new learning for me was there's not like specific chairs or table you can only get through one vendor. When you identify what you're looking for, the vendors will be able to provide that for you,
Mhm.
whether it's
Creating.
Aaron
it
Sanders
or-
Furniture Mart
Yeah.
or Bob's Furniture Mart.
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Did you get any specific names of any vendors from those schools that, or where they ordered those from?
I still have those contacts, and there were pros and cons to some of the things that they have had experiences with too, so.
Yeah.
And Pat, I mean, Patty does this all the time, and so she has a pretty good feel of who is, yeah, reliable and dependable, and also affordable, so.
I know the middle school furniture was back, some of it was back ordered. There was some that back ordered, so that could definitely have, possibly that could happen again, so. They'll feel good to get that done both for our budget and to make sure that we have enough time.
And we can include that in therapy too, and just like a list of visits to furnishings that are building by months.
Thanks for all your time on all those details. Okay, moving on to item W, consider approval of a 12-passenger van as part of the public safety projects.
So Chris has a van up in Alaska, very low miles, so it was more expensive. He's got a 10-passenger van that he can trade in. I mean, a van with 8,200 miles, is almost brand new. So he was.
And this is an all-wheel drive one?
All-wheel drive, and he wanted it, remember, he wanted an all-wheel drive
For
to
the
do routes, because he's looking at, always being more efficient and sending a van out instead of a bus. And so, and then, it would be available. You can always, if you really need another 12-passenger van to go somewhere, they can go after school, or it could go, during the day, and then you just run the bus, then you run that route with a bus for one day. So kind of options there. And so with the trade-in, it does come to $29,402.
Was our plan always to trade in the van on this, or did we throw the van in because this is a little more than we were thinking?
Yes and no. I think the 10-passenger, and probably the person who could best speak to that, who's not named Chris, is also sitting in the audience, but the 10-passenger doesn't get as much use as the 12-passenger. We can only have one. And we also, I think Aaron's brought up, like, if we always add to the fleet, then we add to our insurance costs and stuff like that. So we have to manage. We're looking at, one other thing that's gonna come up is we got a driver car that's just like a little sedan that we either have to fix or trade in.
The 10-passenger van, the body style that's on that, while it's on the same frame as what 12-passenger would be, is 4 feet short. So there's no room for that. So based off of that, we weren't getting any sort of usage. We were excited about that 10-passenger when we bought it. We won't get use out of it because like right now during the summer months, we're sending baseball and softball out of the vans a lot.
Right.
But we can't take that to the.
Because it doesn't have no gear.
We can't put
Yeah,
I
trailer.
love that we're using vans for sports and activities, transportation. Just for everything, gas mileage, safety.
It's been a game
Drivers.
changer for us, especially from a driver standpoint. The only thing we try to balance out is there are some trips where if it is advantageous for us to not have coaches drive. Yeah, because it is a little extra burden that can be, so we try to balance some of that out. Knowing what's going on.
Yeah.
It's nothing like driving 5 hours after,
Yeah.
Yeah,
after
if
getting
you're coaching, you drive 5 hours to get there and coach the whole time, 5 hours back.
And we do, as you brought that up, if we had this 12-passenger van, it could be used this summer without having to worry about it running out.
We are running all those 12 passengers a couple times a week.
Right.
You said this, we need to act on this so we can lock it down before it gets away. I'll make a motion that we approve the purchase of a 12-passenger all-wheel drive route van and trade in a 10-passenger van.
The motion and the second, any further discussion?
How are we deciding which ones are coming from HEPA funds and which ones are from save funds?
We are spending more of our save down. Than Pebble. It doesn't super matter other than you just have just a little bit more flexibility with Pebble than your save. So whenever possible, we're trying to make a conscious effort to spend it out of that save first.
And do you want to? So
Yeah, that'll be another fun thing to work on is, with 3 years left to pay on save. I not even, I get why that might impact our credit score because we borrowed against it, but we only have 3 years left, so that we're not one of the districts. I mean, there's districts that have 15-year save loans, and they're saying they're in danger of defaulting on those. And that's a list we're not on. And I haven't even shared that with the board because I didn't want to stress you guys out, but our save debt is minimal compared to what most districts have. So is there a strategy there? Or can we just prove to the rating agency, listen, we've got saved cash that we could pay this off tomorrow if we needed to?
Do we, I mean,
If it was-
long term, do we have any intention of borrow against save?
Well, we would probably borrow against couple right now before save, just because of, we just have to, the numbers start, they're not great to start with, but I get to kind of present that information to the board, what is it, 117,000 next year or something, and that grows. But that'll be stuff we'll want to watch. Can we help ourselves by not buying buses? Sure, but you don't want to defer all your stuff. But it makes the job more exciting. We'll have more variables to work with.
That's one
In the
way to
next
put it.
5 years, it'll be more than $1 that will be
Well, yeah.
diverted from what we would have gotten from state.
Yeah, diverted. That's good.
Any other questions about the ban? Specifically. We have a motion to second, so we'll move to a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, down to number 10, the superintendent's report.
So I think we covered the furniture field trips, the proposed calendar, and then just kind of put that in. I don't want to be a broken record, but we are watching that timeline for summer of 27. As well as, watching our save and those expenses, and hopefully we can get that furniture ordered sooner than later so that we know what that costs. So I will probably have a special board meeting request, but I don't know how soon I want to do it. I just have some hires I'm gonna want to get to the board. So especially with the Billy's grounds positions that we have.
Would the 22nd be too far away if they?
It might just end up being the 22nd, to be honest with you. That way, because that probably makes the most sense now that you say that, Brad. I thought that and I hadn't put it into long-term memory, but good reminder.
Well done, Brad.
We'll work on agenda for June 22nd, and then we won't have to have two, and then we'll just be more comprehensive on that.
I mean, if it needs to be sooner.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
And then Blake provides a monthly report to the board, which Tim attached to the superintendent's report. Below the word that. To drive by, it's a lot of pages, but quick read of where we're at. There's some great pictures. Thank you all that attended our groundbreaking ceremony. And that
Which was phenomenal.
windy day, but it was phenomenal. And it was actually, I will share this tiny little vignette. I was chatting up all of our construction team that I've seen on Zoom or heard their voice on Zoom, but they all came. And they said that our groundbreaking was one of the best that they've ever been to. They've never been to one that had the high school band participate. They've never been to one that had like so many kids. And it just felt like this was truly a celebration of the kids, which felt really good. And then we'll be able to welcome more, have like a non-business day time during our grand opening to invite the community in. But the groundbreaking is really fantastic.
No shovels for those
Yes.
kindergartners for this. And the sandbox. Sandbox that they created for it.
Right. And I was really thankful that previous board members accepted our personal
Yeah.
invitation to
It
attend,
was fun that they were there.
because this project has not been with only us.
Oh.
They've been
It's
working
been
for.
mostly without us.
We just come in during hot. This conversation has been happening for years and years and years, and they you know, thanked us for the invitation, and we're proud to be in the pictures, and yeah, so celebration. Everyone. Okay,
Well stated.
that brings us to the end of our agenda, so I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thanks for coming, everybody.